Good day. I am Cheska Albo, and I am the leader of Group 1. Today, we are going to show you how we compute and interpret the measures of central tendencies and standard deviation. But before that, let us take a look at the data collected. In the data collected, we have the class intervals and their respective frequencies. Based on this information, the lowest proposed length of recess is 0 minutes and the highest proposed length is 59 minutes. All proposed lengths of recess are divided into 6 groups and have a class size of 10. 0 to 9 has a frequency of 5, which means that 5 people propose to have a 0 to 9 minute recess. Similarly, 10 to 19 having a frequency of 8 implies that 8 people suggested having a 10 to 19 minute recess. The same logic applies to every group. So just remember that the class interval stands for how many minutes the proposed lengths of recess are and the frequency stands for how many people suggested it. If we add all the frequencies together, we will be able to get the number of respondents. In this case, the total number of respondents would be 49. Let's proceed now to the next slide.
As you can see, this slide contains a table that has a lot of empty spaces. Our goal is to fill in each of these spaces so that we can use the table for computation. The class intervals, frequencies, class size, and the total number of respondents are given in the table because we've already figured out what those are when we looked at the data collected. So let's focus now on completing the third column, which is the class mark or X sub m. For us to get the value of the class mark, we need to add the class intervals and then divide the answer by 2. Let's try it in the first row. 0 plus 9 is equal to 9, and dividing 9 by 2 will give us 4.5. Therefore, our class mark for the first row is 4.5. For the next row, we can do the same process again or add the value of our class size to the previous class mark. Either way, the answer will be the same. 10 plus 19 is equal to 29, and 29 divided by 2 is 14.5. 4.5 plus 10 is also 14.5. It's up to you what method you want to use, but since the second one saves more time, that is what we'll be using. 14.5 plus 10 is 24.5. 24.5 plus 10 is 34.5. 34.5 plus 10 is 44.5. And 44.5 plus 10 is 54.5. Now that we've completed this column, let's move on to the fourth one. Here, we have to get the square of the class mark. 4.5 multiplied by 4.5 is 20.25. 14.5 multiplied by 14.5 is 210.25. Keep multiplying the class mark of each row to itself until you finish the entire column. Once you're done, this is what it should look like. Now on to the fifth column. In this one, we have to multiply the frequency and the class mark. In the first row, we multiply 4.5 and 20.25 and the answer will be 22.5. Next, we multiply 8 and 14.5 and we will get the number 116. Continue with multiplying the frequencies and class marks that belong in the same row until every space in the column is filled. If you end up with these numbers, then you have done the process correctly. Before we move on to the next part of our table, we need to get the sum of all the frequencies multiplied by the class mark. Add the 6 numbers together and you should get the total number 1490.5. If you're wondering Why this step is necessary? It's because these summations are needed for our computation later. We're almost done with the table now. Just 2 more columns to go. This time, we need to multiply the frequency with the square of the class mark. 5 times 20.25 is 101.25. 8 times 210.25 is 1682. Keep multiplying the numbers in the second and fourth columns and you should get these numbers. Afterward, get the sum of all these numbers and you should have a total of 56,522.25. For the seventh and final column, we would have to find the cumulative frequency. It might be a bit hard to understand at first, so we'll break it down for you. The cumulative frequency of the first row is the same as its frequency. So if 5 is the frequency in this row, then 5 will be its cumulative frequency. To get the rest of the cumulative frequencies, you will need to add the value of the frequency on the next row to the answer you had just gotten. The frequency of the second group is 8, so add that to 5 and the cumulative frequency will be 13. 13 plus 20 is 23. 23 plus 11 is 34. 34 plus 9 is 43. And 43 plus 6 is 49. Notice how the cumulative frequency of the last row is similar to the total number of respondents? You can use this to check your answers. If the value of the last cumulative frequency and the total number of respondents is equal, then you have solved everything correctly. If not, then you should probably double check your computations. And with that, our table is complete. We have everything we need now. So let's start computing for the mean, median, mode, and standard deviation.
To get the mean, we will be needing the frequency, the total number of respondents, and the summation of x sub m. Here is the formula we'll be using. Mean is equals to the summation of the frequency multiplied to the class mark all over n, or the total of number of respondents. Let's go back to our table and substitute. As you can see here, 1490.5 is the summation of the frequency multiplied to the class mark. Hence, it is our numerator. 49 is the total number of respondents, so it will be our denominator. This will give us the equation of 1490.5 divided by 49, which equals to 30.42. Therefore, 30.42 is our computed mean. This answer reveals that the average proposed length of recess is 30.42 or simply 30 minutes.
Let's proceed with the median. Median actually means middle. So what we're looking for here is the middle part of the grouped data. For this, we will need the class interval, the frequency, the total number of respondents, the cumulative frequency, and the class size. Here is the formula we'll be using. The first thing you want to do here is to figure out the value of n sub 2. Once you have the answer to that, it will be easier to find the numbers you need to plug in the formula. N is equal to 49. Divide it by 2 and you'll get the value of n sub 2, which is 24.5. From here, we'll be able to determine which is the median class. Look at the cumulative frequencies. Can you see which row includes 24.5 in their group? If you said the fourth row, then you are correct. Now we have to take the frequency of the median class and put it into our equation. In this case, that would be 11. Next, Let's find the lower class boundary of the median class. We can do this by looking at the class interval of the median class. Take the interval that has lesser value and subtract it by 0.5. In this instance, 30 to 34 is the class interval of the median class. So take 30 and subtract it by 0.5. The answer you'll get is 29.5. As for the cumulative frequency before the median class, just look at the row before the median class and take the value of its cumulative frequency. Here that would be 23. All that's left now is the class size. It's already given at the table, so go ahead and write it down. Now that we're done with substitution, our equation should look like this. Simplify it and you will get the median, which is 30.86. This means that 30.86 or 31 is what's in the very middle of the data set. Everything above 31 minutes is the upper 50% of the proposed length of recess, and everything below that is automatically the lower 50%.
Now, let's solve for the mode. We can get its value by using these parts of our table: the class interval and the frequency distribution. This is the formula we are going to use for solving. This time, we are going to start by determining which of these is the model class. We can do so by looking at which row has the highest frequency. In this case, that will be the row with the class interval 30 to 39. Take the lesser interval and subtract it by 0.5 to get the lower class boundary of the model class. Here, that will be 29.5. For d sub 1, get the difference of the frequency of the model class and the frequency before it. So we have 11 minus 10, that will give us 1. For d sub 2, get the difference of the frequency of the model class and the frequency after it. So we have 11 minus 9. That will give us 2, and again, our class size is 10. Substitute everything into the equation and simplify. That should provide us with 32.83 as our mode. Therefore, most people propose to have a 32.83, or to be more specific, a 33-minute recess.
Last but not the least, we have the standard deviation. In order for us to find its value, we'll need to have our class size, which is 49, the summation of the frequency multiplied to the class mark, and the summation of the frequency multiplied to the class mark squared. This formula is what we'll be using for the computation. We have our n multiplied by the summation of f class mark squared minus the square of the summation of frequency multiplied to the class mark all over n multiplied to n minus 1. Substitute the numbers we have in our table into the formula and we can proceed with simplification. Once we are done with simplifying the equation, we should have 15.26 as our standard deviation.
That concludes our video presentation on the measures of central tendency, standard deviation, and our interpretation on why it is important to solve them. Thank you for watching and God bless.